Hello and welcome to the Ending Body Burnout Show. We are your hosts, Chris and Philly, co-founders of a multi-award-winning functional medicine practice, serving busy people with energy, mood, and gut issues.
While busyness, addictive doing, people-pleasing, and perfectionism might be the norm, it's not normal, and it's a major contributor to health issues.
Our goal with this show is to give you a holistic root cause approach to healing your body so that you don't have to continue doctor or diet hopping or popping a gazillion supplements hoping something might stick.
So get ready to heal your body, get your spark back, deeply connect with yourself, and step into the life of your dreams.
Let's dive in.
Hello. Welcome to the podcast. You're in for a treat today. We have a pretty phenomenal human being, Dr. Paul Taylor, coming on to the podcast to talk all about stress and hardiness. So when I heard the word hardiness, and he has recently put out a book, The Hardiness Effect, it was kind of like, what does that actually mean? Usually my brain, when I hear hardy, in kind of like the health and fitness space, my brain thinks about go hard or go home, which is not actually what we're talking about. What we are talking about is how dependent on the psychological characteristics that a human being has cultivated within themselves, and that could be as a child or as an adult, we can change our brain to cultivate hardiness characteristics. So dependent on whether people have these characteristics within them will be dependent, the research shows, on whether they thrive with stress or they actually crumble and burn out with stress. And I think that for listeners listening, I know that there are a lot of listeners who are in burnout, who are trying to heal, who might be feeling stuck as well. I think there will be so many really great gold nuggets in this episode today. And some specific things to start cultivating to help you to heal and to thrive and to grow. So Dr. Paul Taylor is a psychophysiologist with a PhD in psychology, separate master's degrees in exercise science and nutrition, and a postgraduate qualification in neuroscience. He is a former Royal Navy officer and former adjunct professor at University of San Francisco. Paul is a leading expert in the hardiness, the cutting edge science that transforms stress into competitive advantage. So he is also author of best-selling, multiple award-winning book, Death by Comfort, and has just released his second book, The Hardiness Effect, which we're going to talk a lot about in today's interview. He is the host of the Hardiness Podcast, which is in the top 0.5% of all podcasts globally. Yours truly, Philly Billette, will be featured on his podcast soon. I am being interviewed on his podcast also. And he has developed a hardiness app to help people develop this crucial life skill. So he has also co-hosted the TV series Body and Brain Overhaul, appeared regularly on The Biggest Loser Australia as a subject matter expert on biological age testing, and has been voted Australian Fitness Industry Presenter of the Year twice. So we've got a little bit of a famous person on today. He actually had to jump off the interview right at the end because he was being interviewed on, I think it was Sunrise TV. So anyway, I know you're going to love this episode. Chris and I jumped off and we were like buzzing with different ideas and putting connecting dots together.
G'day guys, and welcome to this episode of the Ending Body Burnout Show. We have a guest with us on today's show, Paul Taylor. Thanks, Paul, for coming on the Ending Body Burnout Show.
It is an absolute pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. It's actually Dr. Paul Taylor. I think you've recently just completed PhD in psychology. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So I do kind of sometimes get surprised when people say Dr. Paul Taylor.
It's like, oop.
Oh, shit, that's me.
So good. Okay, we're super excited to talk to you. Ending Body Burnout Show. So a lot of our listeners have experienced a lot of chronic stress, burnt themselves out, and looking for ways to recover. And you have a really unique background. So former British Armed Forces officer, psychophysiologist and doctor in psychology now, neuroscientist, exercise scientist, nutritionist, kind of like this beautiful holistic bag of tricks.
Yes. Yeah, and that was by design, actually, is to cover different areas that interact, because I think it's really important. And you know, when it comes to mental health, I think anybody who thinks that you can optimize mental health just with thinking skills, I think they're crazy. And then vice versa, physical health, there's a huge psychological component in that as well.
Yeah, 100%. We're very much on, like, you can't separate the mind and the body. You can't separate the different parts of us. They're all constantly communicating with each other.
Absolutely. You know where that comes from? This idea that they're separate. René Descartes, the mathematician and philosopher, who I think it was in the 1600s. It was around the time of Galileo, when Galileo wrote his paper suggesting that the Earth was not the center of the universe, and he got persecuted by the Catholic Church. They were going to execute him. They ended up putting him under house arrest, and that made scientists a bit nervous, as you could imagine. And so right after that, Descartes wrote his thing, basically his paper on dualism, and said mind and body are separate entities. The mind is the realm of the church and religion, and the body is the realm of science. And the Catholic Church went, oh yeah, that works. So from that point on, you were a scientist in the West, you never spoke about the mind.
Right.
And that has actually endured all the way to modern science.
Wow.
And we know it's right.
Yeah,
the placebo effect is massive.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
So, but that's where it all comes from, and that's why Eastern science, whether it was from the Arab countries or Eastern science, much more holistic than Western science.
That is so interesting. I mean, I've been on a big health journey myself because I had a lot of chronic health issues, and I very much started with the physical. It's like, it's in my body. I feel the physical symptoms. It must be my physical body. Over years, I realized that wasn't the case. But when I came across like mind and the placebo effect, I'm like, that's so woo-woo. But sharing that history, it's like, it's actually...
It's not woo-woo at all. Yeah, it's big. It's big.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So I'm curious how you went from being in the army to being more in the health space and looking at human performance. Was that like your own personal journey of moving out of that, or it all combined?
Yeah, well, actually, I joined the military quite late. I went and I did a degree and then did a master's degree in sports science. And so I joined the military. I think I was 25 when I signed up, and flew in helicopters for 8 years. But my secondary roles tended to be as sports officer because of my exercise science background. Then when I was doing helicopter search and rescue in Scotland, there's a lot of sitting around waiting for the buzzer to go off. So I did a part-time master's in nutrition because I was interested in that. And then when I left the forces, I decided that was what I wanted to do. And I moved to Australia and set up as a physiologist, a nutritionist, and then realized after a while, it's not about telling people what to do. It's about helping them to change their behavior. So I went and studied neuroscience, and then realized that, what's really missing here is the psychology piece. So, it's been a journey that has evolved over time. But I think my military background plays into what I do today. So it's kind of all part of a big puzzle.
And did you have any, I guess, like issues with your health, or you were just interested in it earlier on, and that's what led you into?
I was just interested in it early on. Never had any issues with my health until this year, when I found out, quite fortunately, I play soccer with a cardiologist, and I'd say to him, hey mate, I'm now in my 50s. I want to get a full checkup of my heart. I'm not really interested in cholesterol. I don't think it's that predictive. And he said, fine, come in, let's do a whole test. Sat me down and said, hey, good news is you're really fit. Bad news is that you were born with a congenital heart defect.
Wow.
I was born with a bicuspid aortic valve rather than a tricuspid. And over time it becomes more and more problematic, and it would have eventually killed me.
Whoa.
And
Were
I
you?
would not have known about it until it was almost too late.
Gee whiz. Were you getting any little signals to make you want to look into the heart?
No, nothing at all. But reflecting back, once I knew, I was like, because I noticed this year that my fitness had dropped off, and I was playing over 35 soccer at 53, and I just put it down to it's just father time, it's just catching up with me. But in retrospect, it was my heart, my regurgitation level. So what happens? I got a leaky aortic valve, so the blood pumps out some of it because my valve didn't shut right. Over time, it leaks back in. You get what's called regurgitation. So my regurgitation was about 50%. So half of all the blood pumping out of my heart was coming back in. So it's no wonder I was starting to notice my fitness going down.
Yeah.
So interesting. I wonder if you would have had symptoms if you hadn't have been fit and healthy and looking after yourself.
Yeah, well, it would have taken longer. Right. If you're not fit and healthy, if you're not active, you don't notice it for longer. Actually, just after I had my open heart surgery in January, I saw an article from Roger Black, who was a famous 800-meter runner in the UK, who had the exact same thing as me, but he knew about it from the age of 11. Because often it's congenital, right? But anyway, we're not here to talk about my
It's really fascinating.
segue. I like segues. Segues are good. Okay, so you have a new book out, The Hardiness Effect, which I'm very curious to dig into. Essentially, it's around stress, optimizing health, living longer. Can we talk about stress first of all? Because I know a lot of our clients have experienced stress and trauma. And sometimes the word hardiness might be like, what do I have to harden myself up and force my way through stress? So can you talk about how you're using the term hardiness?
Yeah. So hardiness, it isn't my term. It's out of the research. So cognitive hardiness was first discovered, more than 30 years ago, when Salvatore Matti and Suzanne Kosaba were doing a big study. They were psychologists just working in the Bell Telephone Corporation, which was going through this huge restructure, and the business was struggling. And over time, they noticed a huge amount of the employees got badly affected by stress and got burnt out. But about 30% of them actually improved their performance under stress. And because they were psychologists, they looked into it deeply, and they found that they all exhibited these 3 psychological orientations, which has now become known as hardiness. And then the US military really took up the baton on the research, particularly a guy called Paul Bartone. They found that hardiness actually predicted who passed and who failed basic military training.
You're right.
They then found that hardiness predicted who passed Special Forces selection course. This is the toughest physical and mental course you could possibly imagine. Other research shows that hardiness predicts who passes police special operations. It predicts career longevity in high pressure environments, such as the police, military, first responders. It's been called the best attribute of 25 of the world's greatest leaders. But we also know people higher in hardiness have got better physical health. They've got better overall well-being. Their immune systems respond better to stress, which is critical, right? They also recover quicker from serious illness. And even kids who are higher in hardiness are much more likely to go to university than their low hardy peers, independent of their socioeconomic status. And just to put the icing on the cake, there was a recent research study, a systematic review looked at 116 studies in the workplace around cognitive hardiness. They call it cognitive. A lot of people call it psychological. Same. And they found a huge amount of benefits to hardiness. Right. I mean, it would take me ages to read them out, but it was across performance outcomes, work behaviors, work attitudes, and also employee health and well-being. So hardiness is good for the individual. it's good for performance, and it's good for the organization. And there's a big difference. There's an overlap between hardiness and resilience, but resilience doesn't have a very clear definition in the literature. There's a lot of debate. Is resilience a state? Is it a trait? Is it a process? Is it something you're born with? Is it something you do? Is it something you have? But most people kind of agree that resilience is an outcome. It's about bouncing back. It doesn't tell you how to get there. Hardiness tells you how to get there. And you can improve your hardiness. And that's what I showed at my PhD. We went in to 2 high pressure environments, workplace environments, did some training on them. They improved their hardiness, all 3 elements of hardiness. They also improved their resilience. They improved their mental well-being. They improved how their perceptions of stress. They improved their gratitude, and they even improved some aspects of cognitive function as well.
Amazing. What are the three characteristics?
So the 3 typical ones, I've added a 4th one actually in my book. So the first is a control orientation. Now, they're not in any particular order. So control orientation is that belief that I either control or heavily influence my environment and my destiny. It's what in psychology we call an internal locus of control. An external locus of control is the belief that your environment, your destiny is heavily influenced by other people. And you will hear these people say, this stuff always happens to me. They messed my life up, these sorts of things. This messed up my life, right? But the other aspect of control is that when in challenge or stress, you tend to focus your energy on the stuff that you can control and don't invest it in the stuff you can't control. And a lot of low hardy people are investing so much of their energy in they can't control.
Yeah.
And we can unpack this, obviously. The second one is commitment orientation. This is about being fully engaged in your life and in life's activities. And you will know these people because they bring energy, right? They're those energizing people who are just into stuff. They're curious. And then the other end of the scale is what I call the energy vampires, right? And in between, there's the people who are just a bit blah. They're a bit gray, right? But this isn't just about a workplace. It's about your social life. It's about your hobbies.
Family.
And I'm increasingly concerned about our society because there's an increasing amount of people who spend an increasing amount of their spare time within the confines of 4 walls with their heads buried in a goddamn screen.
Yeah.
And these are what I call passive consumers of life. They're not active participants. The people who are active participants, they have hobbies and interests, what the Japanese call ikigai, right?
Yeah.
The little reason to live. So that's commitment. And by the way, they're also committed to their well-being, and they find that there's a sense of meaning and purpose in life. And you can see how those all connect. And then the third one is challenge orientation. This is about how you respond to change and also to potential stress or adversity. So high hardy people, they view change as an opportunity for them to learn and develop and to get new skills. Low hardy people view change as a threat and they tend to shy away from it. And they don't like change. High hardy people also view adversity as an opportunity to test themselves and they lean into adversity. Whereas low hardy people tend to run away from adversity, bury their head in the sand, hide, those sorts of things. So, and those 3 orientations tend to interact with each other. And then the 4th one that I've added, which I think is hugely important, is a connection orientation. Because the human brain is a social organ. And it's hugely important, especially in times of stress, that we connect to other people, that we lean into other people, that we share our issues, that we support each other. So for me, that's a really critical 4th piece.
Love it. I love it so much.
So control, commitment, challenge, connection. Yeah, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I just really love it. The first one you talked about, the control orientation, with our clients, we think about like their choices, their thoughts, their feelings, their words, their actions, all these sort of stuff, and that's a really new and novel and risky and scary concept for some people with that, as you say, control orientation, because now they're in the driver's seat. They're the ones choosing the choices, right? And then so I feel like maybe the challenge orientation comes into it here as well, where I've noticed some people will go, oh, well, if I'm choosing, well, I'm to blame, I'm wrong, I'm a mistake, I'm stuffing up, I'm not good enough, because they take over responsibility now. And I've noticed there's a that shows up a lot with people that we talk to, which is very interesting.
And when we get to control, there's really three things to focus on. Number one, your attitude. We all get to choose our attitude. Viktor Frankl calls this the last of human freedoms. I see you're nodding, Philly. You're probably familiar with Viktor Frankl, right? Man can take from you everything but one thing: your ability to choose your own attitude, to choose your own way. The Stoics talked a lot about that as well, with their zones of control. So controlling how you choose to respond to your circumstances is hugely important. The second one, and this is increasingly important today, is your attention. Choosing where the Japanese psychology, they just get this beautiful term. They say the most important thing that you have in your control is what they call the flashlight of your attention, right? And as a neuroscientist, I love that, because whatever you pay attention to, your brain commits cells to it. So the issue for a lot of people is that the flashlight of their attention is shown in their own heads for long periods of the day, where they're in their head struggling with their thoughts, struggling with their emotions. They're trying to change the past. They're trying to control or predict the future. They're trying to change other people's behavior. They're trying to make the universe bend around them. And I always say to these people, it's the universe, it's not your universe. Right? But how much of our energy and attention are we wasting on stuff that we can't control? Right? And then the third thing is your actions. We get to choose our actions. We get to, and particularly when we're stressed, we get to choose when we come home. You get to choose whether you react to a stressful day by listening to that little voice in your head that as soon as you walk in the door goes, you've had a hard day, you need a drink, right? Or you choose to listen to the other voice that says, you need to go out and exercise. And because that is actually going to, number one, dissipate the stress that you're feeling. Number two, it's going to renew your energy. And third, it's going to improve your physical and your mental health, right? We also get to choose what we put in our mouth on a daily basis. And research that just came out this morning showed that Australia is one of the worst consumers in the world of ultra-processed foods.
It's crazy.
And this stuff...
Canteens need to change.
Oh, yeah, canteens needs to change. We need to get rid of this bullshit health star system that's on foods. It's just... and we need to just be eating foods that have been alive. I call it a low HI diet. HI stands for human interference. If you're looking at that piece of food, I don't care whether it's a Krispy Kreme donut or a protein bar or a health bar, if you haven't seen it running around on four legs, it's not real food. It's ultra processed, right? And that's simple. And look, we in our house we use the 80-20 rule. 80% of the stuff that goes in your gut on a daily basis should have been alive recently and minimally interfered with by humans, and the other 20% should treat foods. And then the other big behavioral things we get to control is basically our sleep hygiene. And lots of people, particularly when they're stressed, they got our sleep hygiene. You know, you think of that, and I've done it too in the past. We've all done it. You come home, you've had a stressful day, this little wine o'clock goes off in your head, and you know, you drink, you think I'll have a glass of wine, and then it turns into 2 or 3 or 4, and then you're sitting watching TV, and you're up late, you've just destroyed all of your melatonin, you know, you're cognitively stimulated, and then you struggle to get to sleep, and then you're waking up multiple times during the night because of the alcohol, and then you get up and you're tired, so you stick coffee down your neck. You're late because you press snooze 3 times, so you're eating a very quick ultra processed food breakfast. Then you're getting into work, and because you've had poor sleep, ghrelin is higher, which makes you hungry all day, and cortisol is higher the entire next day, which make you crave sugary and fatty and salty food, which is available everywhere. And at the same time, leptin is reduced in the brain, and leptin drives 2 things: cessation of eating and voluntary physical activity. So after a poor night's sleep, you're much more likely to sit on your all day long, and you're a lot less likely to exercise. You're more likely to overeat. And because you're less likely to exercise, you're less able to handle the stress of the day's events. So you go home stressed, and you soothe your stress with either food or alcohol, which both interfere with your sleep that night. And then it's Groundhog Day.
Vicious cycle.
And I've just explained half the listener's life right there. Right?
Yeah, 100%. Totally.
And I'm not saying it's easy. Like it's not easy. It's hard. It's hard to actually go, no, I'm not going to have a glass of wine. I'm going to exercise. It's hard to eat well. It's hard to have good sleep hygiene, but it's a load harder to suffer from burnout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So choose your hard. It's all hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Life is suffering. Either move towards the things that are going to help you get what you want, or more suffering.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Okay, awesome. So I've had a couple of questions as you were chatting. So people who are more prone to experience stress, and that just might be life stress. It also might be a big event, maybe like a big T experience.
Yep.
Does the research show that if that person has already cultivated hardiness, that they're more likely to come through on the other end, maybe even stronger?
100%.
Yeah.
So hardiness actually predicts in combat veterans who gets PTSD and who doesn't, who gets suicide and who doesn't, right?
Yeah, right.
So having those skills, and it predicts career longevity in those high pressure environments. So you're better able to cope with those things. But even if you have been burnt out, or you are currently stressed, you can cultivate your hardiness. That's the key thing, is that it's never too late. And we know you mentioned a few things. You mentioned big T trauma, but also adverse childhood experiences. We know that, if you were brought up in a pretty tough environment, you were physically, mentally, psychologically abused. We know that you're much more likely to have an enlarged amygdala. It's likely that your frontal lobes didn't develop as well as they possibly could have. And it's likely that you then respond to stress in a hypervigilant emotional manner, right? But, and so it makes life harder. It does. Whenever there's stress in there, particularly certain triggers will set people off, right? But we know that there's huge amounts of neuroplasticity in the brain. That we know that you can actually remodel your amygdala over time with a combination of all of those hardiness skills that I talked about, the psychological ones, but this is where I bring in the physiological. So this is the physiological part of the psychophysiologist in me, and half the book is dedicated to that. The stuff that I talked about, the exercise provides all of the conditions necessary for neuroplasticity. Exercise increases all the growth factors in the brain, particularly BDNF, that helps you to regrow new brain cells. You can actually grow new new brain cells, create new connections. BDNF is critical for that. A good diet, particularly high in omega-3 fatty acids, supports the production of BDNF, right? We know that eating lots of plant polyphenols really good for your brain and your brain function, and all those neurotransmitters rely on your food, right? Also, I talked about the sympathetic nervous system switching over into recovery, out of your sympathetic into your parasympathetic, by using breath work, little exercise snacks, cold exposure, sauna, this sort of stuff, good sleep hygiene. is hugely important for neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of spending time in nature, and there's a lot of things that people can do that actually then support their brain. So let me just be clear. Be clear for the listeners. Your brain controls everything that your body does, but it is completely dependent on the health of the body for it to function well. Right? That's the two-way interaction.
Yeah.
That is really important for people to understand.
A metaphor, I don't know if it's a metaphor, but an image I have in my brain when I think about highly processed foods is, and I sometimes say this to my kids, it's like you're just eating plastic.
Yeah,
so I would imagine
absolutely.
if you're putting plastic into your body, and like if we're talking about the brain has nowhere to change. Like it's almost like it's like...
Yeah, it becomes locked in.
It's like locked in.
What we know now about these ultra processed foods is all the chemicals that are in them, the emulsifiers, the preservatives, the flavor enhancers, they disrupt your gut microbiome. And I think most listeners have heard about the gut-brain axis. It's actually the gut-brain microbiome axis that's critical. And I said to my kids, from they're young, you don't just feed yourselves. You feed your gut microbes. And a great analogy for kids is about Star Wars. Get the movie Star Wars, and it's like there's good and evil in everything. And look, it's okay to have a little bit of stuff. You need a little bit of balance, but sugar and processed carbohydrates and processed foods feeds the dark side, and all of the healthy foods that have been alive, that feeds the light side. So it's who do you want to win?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Little Obi-Wans going around in the gut.
Yeah. This was
little Anakins.
Less Darth Vaders, more Obi-Wans.
That's it.
This was quite a few years ago, but one of our children started developing tinea. And it's like, that's because when you put a lollipop in your mouth, you're feeding I called it, it's fungi, but you're feeding the mushrooms and they're showing up on your skin. Yeah. And so then every time they're like, oh, do I want to feed this?
Yeah, absolutely. And kids are smart, right?
They are smart. Well, around that, like we're talking about children because, as parents, and I know that there'll be lots of parents listening, like are some people just born with the hardiness characteristics or it's cultivated over time?
Look, there is definitely a genetic component to hardiness and resilience, right? But more of it is cultivated. And I tell you how you cultivate hardiness. The single best way to cultivate hardiness, and this is really critical for every parent to understand, your kids can and have to do hard things. That's it. Nobody develops hardiness by not doing hard things. By doing hard things, you develop your challenge muscle, right? So you then start to view things as a challenge. So there's this super interesting literature around challenge and threat responses. So say me and Chris are presented with the same potentially stressful situation. We very quickly make an appraisal, what's called stress appraisal. Is this a challenge or is this a threat? If Chris's brain goes to challenge and mine goes to threat, our psychology is very, very different. So in Chris's brain, dopamine is released. That is the chemical of motivation and goal-directed behavior. So it's what we call approach in psychology. Chris leans in, he engages with the situation. The threat response causes me to shut down, to avoid, to procrastinate, to run away, to bury my head in the sand. But the physiology is very, very different. The challenge response, and this is Professor Mark Seary, Adrian Haas, and others, have shown very, very clearly the challenge response activates the fight part of the fight or flight nervous system, right? It's about motivation, engagement, moving, but physiologically, the cardiovascular system in Chris opens up. All his blood vessels dilate, blood flow increases, oxygen increases, breathing rate increases, blood flow and oxygen to his brain increases, blood sugar is dumped into his system, his body is primed to act, right? Whereas with me in the threat response, the HPA axis is activated over your sympathetic nervous system. That's involving the hormone cortisol, and that puts me into lockdown mode cardiovascularly. That threat response, basically my blood vessels constrict, so there's less blood flow, there's less oxygen to the brain, and my body is not prepared to act. It's about disengagement. It's kind of the freeze response, right? Now, the chemicals, I'd say mine is cortisol, is the dominant stress hormone. With Chris, it's adrenaline and noradrenaline. If you've got any Americans listening, that's norepinephrine and epinephrine, norepinephrine. Now, the half-life of those chemicals is 1 to 1.5 minutes. And it takes about 4 half-lives before a chemical's back to normal levels. So within 10 minutes of this stressor, Chris's body is back to homeostasis. Cortisol has a half-life of way longer than an hour. That means that 5 hours later, I'm still having a stress response internally. Cortisol is still coursing through my blood vessels. It's attacking my organs. And for your patients who've been burnt out, it's cortisol, hypercortisolemia, high cortisol over a long period of time destroys your brain. Right?
Most of them have adrenal fatigue.
It just, and that's because those so what happens with those adrenals first? They hypertrophy. They grow bigger. Just like if you're to train your muscles lots in the gym, they grow bigger because of the environmental input. The same thing happens in our bodies, right? And that's an adaptive response to being born in or living in a dangerous environment. But when it's not dangerous, when it's just the stress of work or relationships or stuff, this is a maladaptive response, right? I have an enlarged amygdala. I'm now developing hypervigilance to stress and threat. I'm scanning the environment subconsciously for bad. And when I find it, I linger on it longer than people with a normal amygdala. And the chronic stress, that hypercortisolemia, is destroying my frontal lobes. That means I'm less able to plan for the future, make good decisions, control my emotions, and use my willpower around exercise, on all those other sorts of things, around the behaviors that we talked about. So basically, we get into this vortex that just pulls us down. Then I'd start to socially isolate myself, and that's bad in and of itself. Depression comes in, anxiety comes in, and eventually it's burnout and anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure because your neurotransmitter systems have been burnt out.
Yeah, shut down.
Man,
so
awesome.
that's the bad shit.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
we can't do stuff about it, right? That's the key thing. The best thing is get on the prevention side.
Yeah.
But if you've already tipped over, then it's about the cure side of things.
So as you were talking, I'm just going to look at Chris's notes. When I think as a kid, because I started going into burnout as a child, I reckon.
Right.
Or definitely as a teenager. But I reckon the one thing I had cultivated was commitment. Probably also conditioning, because my parents were hardworking and they're like, develop yourself and do the things. But I actually I was very victim. Challenges were scary. Connection with self wasn't there. And I don't really, I think that it was there in my environment, but as a little kid, I didn't feel like, I always felt like I was left out. And so I can see how that then led to chronic health issues and body burnout as an adult. And I can also see that my ability of being able to heal and coming out on the other side is all 4 of those things, as well as the physical stuff.
Yeah.
So you've just summed up me in a nutshell.
and that I mean, adverse childhood experience, it's really interesting. I interviewed Professor John Reed, right, who is I think he's one of the best researchers in mental health, and his research shows that mental health workers, only about 25% of them ever ask somebody who comes in with a mental health disorder. Only 25% of them ask about adverse childhood experiences.
Wow,
that's completely.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I don't know if I'm allowed to swear in this podcast, but
we'll put a little quacking duck sound.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Because adverse childhood experiences change everything in the brain. right? And it doesn't mean that you're screwed forever. It just means you got to do the work as an adult. You got to work out, what are my automatic behaviors that used to serve me well as a kid because they were protecting me in some way, but are no longer serving me well now, right? And then if you want to heal, it's a neuroplasticity project, right? All of this is a neuroplasticity project, and you need to give your brain the conditions that it needs to heal, right? And this is where people who are chronically stressed or burnt out, I tell you, the single best thing that they can take are Hardy's daily essential nutrients. They have been specifically designed to support the brain and nervous system, and have been shown to be at least as effective as medication for depression, anxiety, and other things. Right?
Amazing.
Because when you're stressed, the body prioritizes the making of stress hormones, because it's all about survival of the species, right? So in stress, this is Professor Bruce Ames' triage theory that's well accepted. When people are chronically stressed, the body robs the brain and nervous system of nutrients to create stress hormones. That's why people's brains become affected. That's why their mood becomes affected, because they don't have the nutrients going to the brain, because it's all being diverted towards an emergency. Right? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
So those Hardy's daily essentials are really, really important for helping people to rebuild. High dose omega-3 fatty acids, good quality ones, lots of exercise as well, breath work, cold exposure, saunas, these sorts of things are all really going to support your recovery, right? And then it's about doing the psychological work, but on the platform of all of the nutrients. So you think the psychological work is regrowing all these connections, but we need the fertilizer. And all that stuff I talked about is the fertilizer. Does that make sense?
Yeah. When you say nutrients, is that omega-3s? Is that your Bs, magnesium?
Yeah. So they've got so many different things. They've got irons, B vitamins, and vitamin D. They've got calcium. It's a massive list, and it's in high doses. Right. The only thing, if people are currently on antidepressant medications, they have to talk to their doctor about it, because they tend to potentiate or increase the effectiveness of the medications. So, but they have a whole heap of doctors that will screen people and then talk to their doctors around it. They're the best research nutrients on the source on the face of the planet.
That's amazing. I just went on a thought bubble, but then I can't remember what it was.
The bubble got burst.
Thought bubble got burst. Oh no, that's what it was. So saunas and ice baths, I also think are great. Actually, this might be a personal question. So I know for some people's systems, if they're coming out of like something like chronic fatigue or like shutdown, where there's been so much stress, what's your thoughts around introducing some of those things? Even breath work sometimes can be too much for someone's system. Is it kind of just titrating that in?
Yeah, look, slow control breathing will never be too much for someone. That's what everybody needs when they're stressed, is slow control breathing, whether it's box breathing, resonant frequency breathing. You can look these things up, right? It's some of the more vigorous breath work that can sometimes be problematic. Now, the thing about cold and heat, they are what we call hormetic stressors, along with exercise, right? And hormesis is summed up by Friedrich Nietzsche: that which does not kill us makes us stronger, right? So they are doses of stress, but they stimulate these stress response genes that then activate a whole heap of protective mechanisms. So what I would be saying if somebody is burnt out is start really low. Maybe start with just a 15-second cold shower, right? You just want that little slight cold shock response. They certainly don't want to be spending 5 minutes in an ice bath, right? So just dip your toe in the water a little bit. You will get some of those benefits. You can have a hot bath rather than a sauna, right? But actually that hot bath is doing a lot of good things. It can be relaxing as well. So it's really about being your own scientist, is running little experiments, because anybody who tells you that there's a one size fits all, or that everybody who's been stressed should not do this. right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of being your own scientist. Run a little experiment, see what happens, but try to control as many other factors, confounding factors as possible. Be a proper scientist, right? So don't do your first ice bath on the same day that you go into the gym and change your diet and all of those things, right? You've just got to try and tweak one variable and see what the impact is.
Yeah, it was a personal question because we got a sauna at our house earlier this year. So I'm like, yeah, sauna, woo! Previous to that wasn't a regular sauna, a sauna-er. And so I was probably doing one every second day. And it was okay, although I way overdid it initially for too long and then not hydrating. But then I noticed my hormones, so my cycle started getting shorter and really saw like PMSy boobs and stuff like that. So I'm like, ooh, this is not...
I've gone too hard.
I've gone too hard. And so, yeah, I've experimented with, at the moment, I'm just doing one a week and making sure I drink a big liter of coconut water. At the moment, that's working great. And I'll probably just maybe next month or the month after, try 2 a week with coconut water.
That's right. It's just little progressive overload. That's the thing. You've got to start where you're at. Right. And then you just little titrate, a little bit of progressive overload. Next week, a little bit more, or 2 weeks or 3 weeks later. Right. Just like you wouldn't go into the gym having never been in there and try and deadlift 200 kilos. Yeah. You know, you're going to start light and then you're just going to build up bit by bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about with stress as well? So, because I think you mentioned it earlier, stress can work to your advantage. But for someone who's cultivating, say, the hardiness characteristics and they're wanting to come back into the world and, I don't know, stress themselves a bit, like in a healthy way, so they're back living life and trying new things, what would you suggest for that?
Yeah, so again, it's a case of start where you're at. I think the commitment and the control stuff, you can knock yourself out with that, and the connection, it's the challenge bit that we need to walk carefully with, and so we know Adrian Haas's research and others' researches will show that, you know, if people had, especially if they've had adverse childhood experiences or burnout, that their ability to get into challenge mode rather than threat mode becomes compromised, right? So they'll probably have to pull back the size of their challenge. And it may be that I avoid challenges in a certain area that I'd become burnt out or had some childhood experiences in, but I might be fine in other things. I might be fine with exercise. I might be fine with a cold challenge or those sorts of things. So it is those little experiments, but it's, again, it's you wouldn't do the same analogy like the gym. You know, you got to start where you're at and just get a little bit outside of your comfort zone. Just make sure that there wasn't too much of a reaction, and then a little bit of progressive overload around those things. But it's really about that psychology going in of this is a challenge. Right? Yeah. But if you find yourself going into shutdown mode, disassociation, those sorts of things, then you gotta pull out of it. You gotta pull out
too much. Yeah.
Too much.
Yeah.
And for certain people, it might just be one area of their life where it's too much. And other areas they'll be completely fine in.
Yeah.
This is where the nuance comes in and the self-experimentation comes in.
Yeah, yeah. We've both it was last week, we auditioned for a musical performance, which we've never done before, and we both got in.
Challenge was very high. I just got the lead role.
So definitely challenging right now.
Speaking in a Scottish accent, so I need to do a little bit more practice with my Scottish.
Wow, that's fantastic.
It's for Sunshine on Leith. Little segue there, so...
But it is
that's cool. But this is the sort of thing that people need to do, right? Is just get comfortable with being uncomfortable. But this starts in childhood, right? This is the message that I've got to give to parents, right? There are so many parents out there who are well-intentioned, and I'm a parent, I get it. You don't like to see your kids struggle. You want to give your kid advantages. You want to do that. But the worst thing that people can do is try to bulldoze a path for their kids.
Yeah.
you're just going to mess them up in the long run, right? Your kids have to do hard things. They have to become uncomfortable. They've got to feel, but you need to be around to pick them up and help them to learn the lessons and to motivate them to get back in, not to come and save them, not to try and help them bring up in a sterilized environment, because you're not going to build anything. It's like psychological stress operates like physical stress and exercise. Exercise is only good for you because it's a stressor. And that stress causes adaptation. The adaptation happens in the recovery, right? So if you never exercise your muscles, you're never going to be strong. It's like the challenge muscle. If you don't exercise your challenge muscle, you're never going to be resilient or hardy, right? Unless you're a genetic freak. And this is the thing. We have to do hard things. I mean, everybody who's listening to this, if I ask them, what is the biggest achievement in your life, the thing that you're most proud of, I guarantee you it'll involve stress and being out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
That is where we grow. That is where we grow.
I was just reading some of our notes. Philly was saying you and your wife are developing a Year 10 elective. Is that something you can talk about? Is that on the cards?
Absolutely.
I'd love to know more.
It is happening. So it's
Awesome.
with Warrnambool College. So I did a hardiness presentation to school principals, and then lots of schools wanted me in, and I did it for the staff at Warrnambool College. And then the PE teacher, who's now the assistant vice principal, approached me and said, hey, what do you think about developing a hardiness curriculum, a Year 10 elective?
So
and I nearly peed myself with excitement. I told my wife, my wife's a counsellor who loves working with adolescents, and she got so excited as well. So awesome. We're working with Galt. Big shout out to Galt if he's listening, and aligning it with the Victorian curriculum. Amazing. And it's going to be it's going to be experiential around both psychological and physiological hardiness. The kids, we're going to be exploring their values, who they want to be, meaning and purpose in life. They're going to be setting their own challenges, meeting them where they're at, physical and psychological challenges. That connection orientation, lots of stuff around that, and control orientation, focusing on what you can control, understanding the stuff you can control, the stuff that you can't. And we're going to be evaluating them around their mental well-being, their physical well-being, their physical health, their performance, and their perceptions of stress. And then we'll reevaluate at the end of the year, because we want to get evidence, right? I know this works in adults because I've done the research in adults.
Yep.
And I'm pretty damn sure it's going to work in kids.
Absolutely.
So cool.
And it was completely oversubscribed, so we have to run it twice in the 2 semesters. So, and every parent I talk to is like, when are you going to bring that to our school?
That's what I'm thinking in my head.
I'm like, our oldest is in Year 7, so hopefully in 3 years' time it's in Tasmania.
And look, Year 10 is perfect for it, because it then sets them up and gives them the life skills for Year 11 and Year 12.
Absolutely.
And helps them to go into that with, this is a challenge for me. This is about testing and developing myself. So we're very excited about running this. So
cool.
that should be cool.
How can people get your book, Paul?
If they live in Australia, they can buy it off my website, and they'll get a signed copy if they want. Awesome. Or they can just buy it off Amazon or Booktopia. But if it's overseas, you got to buy it off Amazon or something like that, because it just costs far too much money to send it, to be honest.
Yeah, cool.
I'll make sure. That's so good. I'll make sure those links and a link to your website is in the show notes.
And
very cool. Thank
you. You've got to go. But I just wanted
You're about to be on TV, aren't you?
Yes, I'm going to be on Sunrise Channel.
Awesome.
Amazing.
7, I think.
Amazing.
Did I get that wrong?
I just wanted to ask you one question.
Yes.
As a passionate as you are about hardiness, if you had one wish that you could change the world somehow, you're just like, you know what? This is what I want. What would you wish for?
Big Chris.
Oh, that is massive. So if I was czar of the universe, You're only giving me one wish.
Yeah, I actually wrote 3 on my book, but you're only allowed 1 now because you're running out of time.
Right. If I'm only allowed one, I'm passionate about the kids.
Yeah.
My wish would be we stop talking to kids about mental health labels, and we only talk to them about skills.
Oh, amazing.
Because the research is now showing the more you talk to kids about their emotions, the more you ask them about their emotions, the more you make them aware of pathologies of this is what anxiety looks like, this is what depression looks like, the more likely they are to identify with it because they're so suggestible. And young kids should not know about friggin' mental health conditions. We didn't when we were kids. No. They should not know about this. Because and we need to teach them life skills.
Amazing. Wow.
Awesome. All right.
Here's
Thank you
to
so
making
much.
that wish come true. That's awesome.
Cool. And by the way, guys, if anybody is interested, I also have a podcast on hardiness. If people want to know it more, it's called the Hardiness Podcast.
Yeah, it's a good podcast. Listen to one this morning in the shower.
Awesome.
Cool. Excellent.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on.
Sorry, Philly. I hope you turned out shower to cold for 10 seconds.
No, I didn't get to that part in the podcast. I had a sauna.
Next time.
All right.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Paul Taylor, everybody, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Catch you later.
See you later.
See ya. Bye.
Thanks. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. We so appreciate you. If you'd like to give us extra smiles, drop us a review and spread the love by sharing this episode.
You can also rate your own state of burnout and the root cause contributors by taking our Ending Body Burnout Assessment on our website. And if you're interested in learning about our group or one-on-one Ending Body Burnout programs, shoot us a DM via Instagram or Facebook.
Have the best day ever.